Will you guys ever go back to the Saints Row world, or what do you think's going to happen?
Not expecting that. If anything, I was kind of expecting a Saints Row title to be popping out.
First question is, because I was a little bit confused. This is not a Saints Row game, but it's happening in the Saints Row universe.
Agents of Mayhem from Deep Silver Volition.
You want to eat my baby's testicles? Burn, you son of a bitch, burn! Burn, go to hell, burn!
Who's my little birdie? Yes, very good bird. Oh, hey everyone, it's me, Flippy. Well, Agents of Mayhem was a commercial failure. It was reported as one of the worst-selling AAA titles of 2017, and according to Steam charts, had an all-time peak of only 3,700 players on launch. But why? Where exactly did Volition's new IP go astray? Were Saints Row fans really all Volition had as their market advantage? Or did this game lack standard key AAA open-world features that today's market demands? Did not having co-op seal this game's fate? Or was the concept of a bad versus evil 80s era Saturday morning cartoon styled game not enough to captivate an audience? Well, I've been following Agents of Mayhem since it was publicly announced at E3 2016, and I've ultimately boiled the demise of this game down to two very simple reasons, which I'm not comfortable sharing with you. Except I'm going to do it now. Number one is marketing. I think the way this game was marketed was mismanaged from day one. As far as Saints Row fans are concerned, I don't think anyone was too happy when this game was announced. You should already know by now that the tension between Saints Row fans and the subject matter of the games are a touchy subject. We've gone from gangster to pop star to superhero to hell, and now this? The end of the E3 announcement trailer was clearly insinuating that Agents of Mayhem was technically the next Saints Row game, and that confused a lot of people. It didn't help that immediately after its announcement, the Saints Row concept box art was discovered, and the official Agents of Mayhem website hinted that there was a surprise in store for Saints Row fans. But many Saints Row fans had already made up their minds that this was just another feeble attempt at repurposing the Saints Row brand. For them, it was the same scenario that they've seen before to the nth degree. Volition was going in a completely new direction while trying to drag their old user base along with them through their brand's marketing. Paint it purple, tease that fleur-de-lis, and ooh, is Aisha going to make an appearance? Is this game the spiritual successor to Saints Row? Is this game supposed to be Saints Row 5? As a Saints Row fan, should we all migrate to this new IP? It was confusing for Saints Row fans to say the least, especially when everyone was trying to call this a Saints Row game in one way or another, when it just clearly wasn't. In fact, you could even say the entire thing was pure misdirection on marketing's part, and that's where it would end for months because we wouldn't be getting any more information about AOM until the next year. But let's back up a bit. Let's go with the scenario that Volition wasn't trying to concoct some evil marketing scheme. In the same way you didn't hear Red Faction fans scream for the boycott of Saints Row because Ultor and Masako were being shared in the Saints Row series, let's say that Saints Row fans were respectful and that these Saints Row references were nothing more than a celebration of the studio's past as they look towards a brighter future and a better life. The marketing still sucked. Immediately when people saw this game, they thought of, say it with me now, Overwatch. We were being marketed a game where you play as all these heroes with their Mayhem ult abilities or whatever. We were showing the franchise force and Rama to death for about 2 weeks and then nothing. For months, we got nothing, no new information. No matter how you slice it, it started off on the wrong foot. Saints Row fans were pissed because they thought their favorite brand was being deformed for a game they had no interest in, and the general gaming market saw a cheap, cel-shaded shooter trying to ride the coattails of the ever-popular Overwatch, only in a third-person, single-player format. First impressions are everything, and that first impression would linger for 9 months because there was nothing else to be said. No new information about the game would be released until the end of March 2017, when we finally got this character lineup leaked at a Deep Silver press event in London. Now, if by chance you were interested in this game, then you still probably would have forgotten all about it by then, unless you were following Volition on social media or watching their streams, which were totally awesome because they were actually showing off the game, answering questions, showing concept art, telling stories about the development. It was hard not to get excited. They were cutting through all the marketing bullshit and providing real insight to their product. Watching these streams is what won me over early on. But as for the official marketing, it just wasn't gaining much traction at all. Though the franchise Force trailer had a nice mix of action and information about the characters, everything after that was reduced to nothing but a montage of mindless carnage set to remixed 80s music. People didn't know what the hell the game was even about. Seriously, go read the comments for these trailers. Everyone is saying, what happened to Saints Row? Is this a MOBA? And this is an Overwatch clone. And then midway through the campaign, they started revealing these Saints Row characters with GAT as a pre-order bonus, which brought in a lot of attention as being the most viewed AOM trailer, but I think it further confused Saints Row fans and definitely turned a lot of them away because now at this point they thought they were basically getting another Saints Row superhero game with no co-op or character creator. And because they think it's Saints Row, they're shitting on this game for not having defining Saints Row features. I'd like to say these people are fucking stupid, but marketing must take credit for creating this confusion. It wasn't until the launch trailer that they finally just had to spell it out and say, this is not a Saints Row game, which I have to say was probably their best marketing move in this regard, except it came a little late, and I still have people telling me AOM is Saints Row 5 for some reason. I also think they could have been a bit more self-aware and poked fun at the Overwatch comments too. Remember when they went savage on GTA?
Would you rather go bowling or steal a septic truck and spray loads of sewage on pedestrians?
Oh man, I was expecting them to do something like that with Overwatch, but sadly it never came. Probably for the best. I wouldn't want to kick that hornet's nest either. I just think that the whole marketing campaign relied too much on scripted action montages and nostalgia. And even though it does a great job showing off how you can swap characters in real time, they're all pretty much the exact same trailer with different music. Evidently, I think they completely threw their own lore out the window and compromised their aesthetics for a more generic mainstream appealing theme that the public saw as shallow and trite. Marketing your DLC stuff in the launch trailer is unethical and misleading, you guys. But you know, marketing's not that bad because they gave me a copy of the game early. That's completely right. If marketing played a part in this game's demise, it was absolutely the lesser of two evils, which leads us to the real reason why this game failed. This game should have been delayed. You see, when I was given an early copy of this game to review, I was actually given access to the dev build. I actually don't think I was supposed to be on it, but I was anyway. It was very badass, I was geeking out the whole time, and I probably shouldn't even be shown. Anyway, the point is, I was playing a version of this game that I knew wasn't going to be released. It was an early build. Any issues I came across performance-wise, I wasn't even going to let it affect the way I review the game in the slightest. That just wouldn't be fair. I had already prepared how I was going to make the review by dedicating major topics of the game to its own video, allowing me to get more in depth. But eventually, as I began filming for it all, I just kept encountering the worst glitches. Like, pretty diabolical shit. I'm trapped in a room, poisonous gas is slowly killing my character, I feel like I'm having a fucking anxiety attack because of it, and the game bugged out so I can't hack the console and move on. So I'm forced to watch my character suffocate. That happened to me far too many times for me to count. The game would trap me in just about every room possible. Mission scripts would fail to trigger, leaving me walking in circles for minutes before I realized I had to restart. The game would softlock. The game would crash. Objectives wouldn't complete. The replay feature wouldn't work. The checkpoints wouldn't work. Well, again, early copy of the game, no big deal. What are you gonna do? But eventually, as the official release date grew closer and closer, Saints Godzilla and I became a bit concerned about the current state of the game because he was going through the exact same problems that I was. And so he asked Volition when the day one patch would be available for us, and I think they told him something along the lines of, "Oh, the day one patch went live last week. You should already be playing it." And my heart sunk. We were playing the day one patch. Everything that I'm showing you is what the game was like on release, even after the hotfix which came out a week later. There was so much wrong with it, oh my god. Like, these weren't glitches you come across once or twice every 5 hours of playtime. It was like you would get 30 different kinds of glitches for every hour of playtime. I've seen some shit, man, but this was too much. It was the buggiest Volition game I think I've ever played, and I've played Saints Row 1. I think around this time I immediately stopped talking about AOM on social media, and that kind of sucked because I actually do like this game, but potential excellence doesn't mean shit when the product is malfunctioning. In other words, no matter how much I like the idea of this game, there's no way in hell I'm recommending it to my audience if it's filled with technical problems. You can't justify that. This game shouldn't have been released when it was. It wasn't ready. This is what killed the game. Word got out pretty quickly that the performance was horrible, and so nobody wanted to play it. It's a tragedy, but again, we recall the great quote by Miyamoto-chan, "A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad." Some group of people made the conscious decision that things were going okay with this game and they were locking down that release date of August 15th, 2017, and that was a mistake. They needed more time to polish the game. I kind of knew the game was fucked at this point, and so I had to start recording all those glitches to include them in my reviews, but I was informed rather quickly that a 30-day patch was coming to fix all the problems, so rather than make a bunch of reviews on a game that clearly needed work and would eventually be fixed, I decided to just wait it out and remove myself from the equation. Anytime somebody would ask me if the game was worth playing, I'd just say something like, "Don't buy it until you've seen my review." That is, you're gonna want to wait a while. So anyway, fast forward to the 30-day patch, and it includes over 400 fixes. Every major bug that I showed you was completely fixed, and we even got a bit of gameplay rebalance out of the deal as well. But here's the sad part. My first video left off on this cool pressure launch that frankly makes the Gravity Dominator such a standout side quest. In fact, it was supposed to be the leading thing in my next review, which showed off all the activities, but the patch lobotomized this feature. It no longer whirled your vehicle around in the air, and we're left with a pretty lame replacement as a result. Their reasoning for removing this feature made complete sense. Basically, if you were in a mission of some kind and the waypoint happened to be right in the area of a Dominator, then you would be screwed because your vehicle would get picked up and you'd fail. You'd be forced to complete the Dominator before you could continue with the campaign, and that's no good. But still, losing what made this weapon so special kind of bummed me out. It didn't help that there were persisting problems and that they were still polishing their single-player game up weeks after its release. Around this time, I was also informed that a 90-day patch was coming and that my complaint about the pedestrians in my open world review were going to be addressed. So, yeah, they really should have just delayed this game. It's tragic that I even have to say that again, but it's the truth. The team at Volition put a lot of love and passion into this game. They absolutely were not just trying to fuck over their user base, but someone should have known that it was undercooked. A decision should have been made to delay the game until it was working properly. A spring 2018 release would have been fine. There's no shame in delaying your game. Yes, you would have upset some people, they would have bitched for a while, but that is minuscule compared to the shame in releasing a poor product. As soon as people heard about the persisting performance issues, the game was done for. Like, I understand from a business perspective that the release dates for these AAA commercial grade products are tough to change. There's so many people involved, and that fourth quarter release period is so tasty. You just can't miss out on that deadline. But I hope they realize that whatever inconvenience they feel in delaying a game is nothing compared to the aftermath of what happens when you stick to the release date of a game not fit for release. Just 2 weeks after the release of the 30-day patch, nearly a fourth of Volition employees were laid off. Those amazing streams have ended in a prolonged hiatus, and for all the Saints Row fans out there who were hoping for this game to fail, I hope you're proud of yourselves because Volition losing millions on this game means that your hopes for a Saints Row remaster now has a negative 10% chance of ever happening. Now, watch as I combine all the juice from the mind, heal up, wheel up, bring it back, come rewind. What's the scenario? How is this game now that the 90-day patch is out? Well, it's officially the final patch, and besides a few persisting minor bugs, the gameplay's great. And with that, I can finally get on with the review. Spoiler free. If you're on this channel, then you're most likely coming over from a Saints Row perspective, but let's just try to nip this in the bud now. This is not the kind of game that you would compare to Saints Row. Those defining sandbox elements that made the Saints Row series so great are just not in this game at all. People who expect to shop for clothes, modify their characters, fly in aircrafts, pimp their rides, do all this sandbox stuff are going to be disappointed to find out that they're being sold a game with pre-made characters with 5 outfits each. But that doesn't automatically make this a bad game. It just means that it's not Saints Row and you shouldn't expect it to be Saints Row. I'd say that Saints Row is more well-rounded in sandbox features. Agents of Mayhem is pure action-adventure, bang bang pew pew. This game's entire focus is on its combat system. Choosing agents and fighting a variety of Legion troops is what you're going to be doing about 90% of the time. But the good news is that combat is fun and addicting. It's an aspect that is much more fun than Saints Row. Every agent will have a different combat style. Some agents you'll immediately fall into their rhythm, others will take some practice in the rec room. Personally, I love to play as every character in the game, so at times I'm conflicted as to who I want to deploy into the open world with. We have a great cast with this game, and their personalities are brought out through beautiful animation and design. You can also switch up the properties of how these agents fight and unlock different kinds of Legion tech upgrades that will affect your agent's combat abilities. You've got a lot of depth to explore with all this, and it keeps all the combat varieties fresh for hours. Now, in Agents of Mayhem, there are 15 difficulty levels, and I have to say that is one of my favorite things about this game by far. Volition's previous games were just far too easy. You'd barely face any real danger as you played through them, even on the highest difficulty setting. However, Agents of Mayhem, despite what the trailers show, doesn't fuck around. From level 10 onwards, it's about as difficult as Saints Row 1, and level 15 is like the co-op Donnie mission from hell. I recommend you play on level 15 because I think the game is way more fun when you're forced to strategize during life or death situations. It gives you an actual challenge, and you're not just walking from checkpoint to checkpoint. On these higher levels, you will die often. Paired with impressive AI and a large variety of challenging enemies, we've got good stuff all around here. This is the core of the game, and it is very fun to play. Though if you get tired of shooting at things, then you're kind of fucked because that's really all this game is about. There's little to no room to derp around. You're either exploring the map, hacking things, or shooting things. Gremlin tech along with the various Mayhem abilities will bring out some silliness during combat, but interaction with literally anything else is only surface deep. The side activities of this game are where things start to get a little more interesting. In the City of Seoul, there are 4 quadrants. Each of them are controlled by what is known as a Legion outpost. Once you infiltrate and take one of them over, you get to see all the Legion activities in the area. You do enough of these, and then one of 3 Doomsday weapons will spawn. Now, unfortunately, the actual tasks themselves are where things actually start to weaken. Most of these activities are the video game equivalent of bread and water. Just enough to keep the game healthy with content, but are so uninspired that they can become repetitive real quick. Some activities are awesome, like the Legion Lairs, where you open up a trapdoor underground to fight through a series of Legion strongholds. However, most are promising but ultimately shallow, like Recon Run, which, to be fair, gives you a nice temporary perk for completing it, but just look at this gameplay. You're basically running through the city. No one is chasing you. No one is shooting at you. Quite frankly, it's pretty easy, and I don't think I could lose this challenge if I tried. They really should have tried to make it more like Trailblazing, or took advantage of the Mayhem Star tech to spice it up. But no, you're just running. And sadly, some activities are just plain dookie. Why the fuck would I want to be delivering these slow-ass cars for quarter mile? Ever. If the prize is just a blueprint, I'd much rather try my luck running from loot chest to loot chest farming rewards. It's a mixed bag, but everything, at least for the most part, revolves around the core gameplay of being an Agent of Mayhem, and that core gameplay just happens to have a very strong fun factor. So that by proxy makes everything else fun, and so I don't really mind these low caliber activities so much. In fact, I kind of like them, but they absolutely leave much more to be desired. Coming from the Saints Row series, it lacks all the razzle-dazzle sandbox variety that made the Saints Row activities so outstanding. Though I will say, I do love the activity system. Some of my longtime viewers will know this, but I really did not like how Saints Row 3 and 4 just left you with nothing at the end of its campaign. By the time you finish the story, the game just becomes a shallow husk of itself. But with AOM's system, even though I have a 100% game save, I can warp anywhere in the map and I'll be surrounded by things to do. The activities never end. I can just travel around the city, and on every other street there will be one of these objectives to complete. I can choose to do them, or I can choose to ignore them. I can run on a series of challenges, chasing them, connecting them. It really gets you moving around, and I find it to be very fun and harmonious with the city itself, despite having completed the campaign hours ago. Volition tried a new system, and I'm pretty convinced I like it, despite the activities being pretty subpar overall. Now, as for the campaign, I actually rather enjoyed the campaign. I think that the story along with the gameplay progressively gets better as you go through it. Towards the end of the game, things get absolutely epic, and I thought the game ended on a real strong note. though admittedly, there really isn't much variety to the campaign. Again, it's harnessing most its power from the combat system they built. It's pretty rigid in this design, but they do find ways to break the routine every now and then, and those moments are usually pretty great. But if you're expecting to do anything outside the ordinary or be put in wacky QTEs or something, then this might not be the game for you. For me, I loved all the lieutenants, and I had fun throughout the journey that Volition crafted, and I was hooked from beginning to end. The campaign missions might not have the glitz of those fancy Saints Row 3 sequences, it might not be filled with scripted meme missions like Saints Row 4, but it has an engaging consistency to it where you're in control of skill-based gameplay, wrapped up nice in a sincere story, and that is what I loved about this game from start to finish. Though I'm not hesitant to admit there were a few sad sads along the way. All 12 agents will have 2 personal missions each and then a mission for each squad, but you'll notice the pattern with these missions are that they keep taking you back to the Legion layers. Now, I've already stated before that Legion layers are one of the better activities of this game, but the more that the game forces you to go through them with a gloss of narrative attached, the faster the charm wears off, and pretty soon the whole illusion of disbelief that you're playing through randomly generated rooms start to feel more like copy and pasted rooms, and you'll quickly realize that you're just getting a shuffled pattern of about 15 rooms that all look the same. They do their best to spice the experience up a bit more in the campaign, but it's not enough stimulation to break the utter monotony, and the experience begins to feel cheap. Therefore, my advice is to avoid the Legion layers as an open world activity and just do them as the game gives them to you in the campaign so you get more enjoyment out of them and don't suffer from burnout as fast. But you might anyway. For one of the squad missions, they actually make you go through the Legion layers 3 times consecutively. It takes around 15 to 20 minutes to go through them once. It's a good concept that they batter and beat to death like a dead whore, but for the most part, they keep things above ground in the gorgeous city of Seoul, which incidentally are where I feel the best missions take place. The game does get better as you go through it, but the Legion layer padding will pop up an absurd amount of times. But you know what, guys? Let's just go ahead and wrap the review up. I didn't go very in-depth with this review like I had initially planned months ago, and that's because this game has been through hell and back. What happened with this game is nothing short of a tragedy. On one hand, I wouldn't dare try recommending this game as a $60 AAA title, especially during its launch, but at this point, the game has been completely patched up and is currently fluctuating on sale between $15 and $40. That's a damn good deal, and it makes any additional complaints I have about this game feel so minuscule to the overall deal you'd be getting. For example, as much as I love the design direction to use 2D animation, some of these are just straight up Adobe Animate storyboards. But then I remember that this is a new IP, and I think back to when Saints Row 1 was a new IP, how basic it was, how buggy it was, and then I remember it got a sequel that blew everyone's mind. I'd like to think that's what Agents of Mayhem 2 would be. In the sequel, we would have co-op. In the sequel, we would have complex 2D animation, and better activities, and a bigger world. But unlike Saints Row, this game did not sell. We will not be getting an Agents of Mayhem 2. Much like the children of the West Memphis 3, that dream is dead. I have no doubt Agents of Mayhem 2 would have been insane, but we're never getting it. Agents of Mayhem will probably earn a cult classic status, and that'll be the end of it. At this point, it's up to you whether or not you want that experience. If you want my recommendation, I say yes. Get this game on Steam. Get the game for the PC. Buy the game for the PC. Get the game on Steam so that you have it for the PC, okay? And I hope you do get a chance to play this game for yourself and let me know what you really think. Because if you're just going to type in the comments, "This game sucks," without including any real constructive criticism, then save your precious little baby fingers for your bottle. This game is not only better than it was on launch, but it's cheaper than it was on launch. So if you want a beautiful open world game with addicting combat and a great cast of characters, then you can't go wrong. Ultimately, the choice is yours. I don't really give a shit. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go play with my new pet bird. Until next time, thanks for watching.